Welcome to today's edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest. Very happy to be with you here on NoFilter.net and Believe and the various other platforms that transmit the program. And it was a wild day of watching baseball yesterday. One of those days that you definitely wanted to be in front of a television set if you're a baseball fan, as you had all of the series being contested yesterday. 4 games began around 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And 2 numbers really stood out to me from yesterday's activity. If you were a degenerate gambler, which I'm assuming all of you are, otherwise you wouldn't be tuning into the program. But the 2 numbers were 1 and 72,000. 1 and 72,000. And they do have a little correlation there, and there is something to both of those numbers having something in common. 1 and 72,000. You're saying, what the fuck is this guy talking about? 1 would be the number of stolen bases by Giancarlo Stanton, which I would imagine. Now, was there anybody with big enough balls to go ahead and take that as a prop bet? Because I would think, and this is the connection between the 2 numbers, I would think that you probably could have got something in the neighborhood of 72,000 to 1. Stanton, who, as we said, probably is moving with less grace and less smoothness than Verbal Kent was in The Usual Suspects, had 4 stolen bases on the year. And you're thinking, that had to be on the back end of any number of double steals. You can't figure that this guy, with quad injuries and hamstring injuries, heck, he gets out of bed and he pulls a calf muscle, and he ends up stealing a base. Very clever baseball move at the time in a 2-2 game. He, of course, was the big differential in this one for the Yankees, and I don't know that justified the enormity of his contract when he left the Marlins. The Yankees took on the $300 million that he was owed, and maybe with good reason at the time, because he had just had that sensational MVP type of season where he hit 59 home runs and was a monster at the plate and was hitting these tape measure shots as if he was the second coming of Mickey Mantle. And he goes to the Yankees. You would have to say that's a lot of money that went up in smoke in that Giancarlo Stanton deal with the overall productivity that he's had compared to the amount of money that he's being paid. But the Yankees don't care about that. And last night, he certainly paid dividends as he goes 3 for 5. I was thinking about putting money on him in-game betting at Bet Online of Stanton to hit a home run. I don't know why I felt he was going to hit a home run in that spot when he finally did, and it turned out to be the differential in the game. But the real shocker was Giancarlo Stanton stealing a base. So that was the one. And the 72,000, what kind of degenerates are going to Citi Field in New York? I have never seen a number that large. Maybe you have. I haven't. And I rarely pay attention to this because usually if somebody says, hey, you want to buy a couple of tickets for the 50-50 raffle? I'm thinking, what exactly is the foundation that half of this money in the pool is going to? Is it something that's very favorable to the club, or are they actually dispensing this and distributing this to various charitable organizations in the community? I'm not sure. If that's the case, then I don't mind throwing a few bucks in and taking a chance that I walk out of there with $5,000-$10,000 in the 50-50 draw. But this was readily in evidence as you watch Lindor's home run leave the field and the various replays that followed, the grand salami that won the game for the New York Mets in spite of another dicey performance by Edwin Diaz there, who, as we said the other day, and I hate to keep making this reference, but you would almost prefer that they brought Cameron Diaz into the game if you're a Mets fan, because at least she looks good if you're going to lose the ball game. And, of course, he gives a massive anxiety attacks to all Met fans as he throws 4 straight balls to the first batter and then walks the next guy, I think, on 5 pitches, and all of a sudden the tying run is coming to the plate with no outs in the 9th inning, and you're trying to stave off disaster, which they eventually did. But 72,000 was the amount of money in the 50-50 pool. And I'm thinking, do you get all of that? Do you get half of that? I'm not sure what number that actually represents in terms of the winning ticket. But it's true. I mean, you blow by the person who's offering you these tickets at the gate when you come in. You want to play the 50-50? Nah, go fuck yourself. Is my first reaction. You have no chance of winning that. A better chance of hitting the mega Powerball drawing. But, 72,000 seemed like a lot of money. I have never seen a total that high for the 50-50 pool. So congratulations to the Mets, not only on winning the game, but on generating one of the best and most significant 50-50 pools and a raffle that I've ever seen at a sporting event. Now, if you are betting these games, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for everything football. You can bet even during the game, and they have live odds and spreads they'll post during the game's competition. If you think you really know your stuff, get in on the mega contest, or you pick 5 games in the NFL against the spread every week for your chance to win weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, you can get involved in over 150 slot games they make available to you. Bet online, you can head to the website today, and Bet online, you know their slogan, the game starts here. All right, lots of baseball action to discuss here on the program today, and we want to get into some picks coming up over the weekend. It's always a nice turnaround day. It's kind of hump day for a degenerate. When you get to Thursday, you have a Thursday night ball game today that is of great intrigue, as we don't know if the San Francisco 49ers are really on the downslide, or the Seattle Seahawks. They've lost their last 3 ball games after a promising start, or would have lost 3 in a row if they lose tonight. So all of a sudden, they become suspect. And that's an interesting game to try and handicap. And the other game that we've been looking at since the beginning of the week is this Monday night football game, which got even more interesting as the New York Jets are going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills originally installed as only a 1.5-point favorite. Maybe that was in deference to the idea that Josh Allen was not going to be available. Apparently, he's going to play. It doesn't matter that he's speaking in tongues. He's still going to go out there. He did come back in the ball game where he got hurt, had his head slammed into the turf. Like he was in an airplane spin from the late, great Bruno Sammartino at Sunnyside Garden in New York. It bounced off the canvas, and you thought, wow, that's going to take him out for a while. Their backup is Mitch Trubisky, who is not Josh Allen, but probably not as incompetent as some other backups that you'll see around the league. He has been involved in some of the action, taking over in garbage time and generating a touchdown drive for the Buffalo Bills. So it looked to me like that was a startlingly low number, Bills against the Jets. Then the Jets subsequently fired their head coach, Robert Saleh. Did Aaron Rodgers have anything to do with that? I'm thinking yes, right? When Woody Johnson calls Aaron Rodgers and says, oh, by the way, we're going to fire Robert Saleh, does he just remain silent? I think if he had said, no, keep this guy, that might have been the case. But in spite of his denials, it did seem like Aaron Rodgers is very much on board with that. And we know that interim coaches can sometimes come in and give a little jolt of enthusiasm to a team. It's actually produced a winning margin over the last 14 years, something like 16-11. Straight up and very favorable to the point spread as well. So that's another thing to take into consideration. The line now 2.5, and we'll see if that holds up. But I'm still inclined to think if we get Josh Allen in a ball game, that the Bills will prevail. We welcome the show, and this is great because he is Mr. Baseball for us here on Bury Your Bookie. We welcome the great Mike Jones to the program. Michael, how are you, my friend?
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Ready to go. We got some good ideas for you, and hopefully we can bury some bookies this weekend.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping to do that. Now, are you inclined when the person comes and offers you, they always have the raffle tickets and they go, hey, you want to play the 50-50? To tell that person to just go fuck themselves? Or what do you think? You take a shot, and have you ever seen 72 dimes available in the 50-50 program?
Never that. But I will tell you this. When I first started going to Panthers games was the first time I started seeing it.
Yes.
And I did participate. But then I'm like, what am I doing? I'd rather spend the money at the beer counter, or I'd rather go buy some swag or something. So I didn't think I'd do it. But, I can see how people get into it. I would say if I saw a $50,000 number growing, I'd probably jump in. I think
that's the only time I ever played it. We were talking about the Florida Panthers. We're both here from South Florida, which, by the way, Milton made its way through. It didn't really impact us here in this area. We have a beautiful day working today. We don't know exactly what the accumulation of damage was. It was predicted to be one of the most devastating storms ever, and it crossed the state and actually blew the roof off of Tropicana Field, which at one time was known as the Blunder Dome. I don't know who the architect of this field was, because it's the dumbest constructed ballpark in history, and you hate to see something like this happen and make light of something that was potentially catastrophic. Yep. But it comes as no surprise that roof might not have been as secure and safe as some of the other properties there in the St. Petersburg area. But naturally, our empathy and our feelings go towards all of those people that are now imperiled by the crossing of Hurricane Milton, which is out in the ocean now, churning up stuff in the Atlantic, but across the entire state. And hopefully everybody comes out of that more on the okay side than the predictions were, and that might have been the case. All right, I know, were you gargling with Visine yesterday like I was, Mike? Did you watch all of these games?
I did, and I was stuck on 8-0 in the over in the San Diego Padres game and couldn't swing it with guys on base all over the place late in that game and couldn't get off the push. Did get the push last night in that particular game. Got some. Today's games are very interesting. I kind of think the Guardians' backs are against the wall. I think the Tigers may be the American League team of destiny. They do that old pitching thing, give a guy an inning or two, and then just kind of go to the pen and play it out. I think they're getting timely hitting, and I think they're playing with borrowed money. They're just the team that's not supposed to be there. Everybody got rid of them at the All-Star break, and now here they are, with a chance to get onto the American League Championship Series. I find that team to be very interesting. So, you know,
It's funny when you see them too. Some of the players that have been heroic in the series so far, and in the postseason, as Detroit won the previous series in a two-game sweep, and now they pitched 20 consecutive shutout innings, which naturally is a record of some sort. I don't know if it's the all-time record for postseason shutout innings. Holy Don Drysdale, what are we talking about here? But when you see these guys in interviews, I've seen guys at Williamsport that looked older than the
right,
Detroit Tigers. I mean, just like the Kansas City Royals, a really young team that you look at their payroll and you would figure that this is somehow way out of proportion, the results with what would normally be predictable in these kind of outcomes. But yeah, 3-0 yesterday over the Guardians, and now in a commanding position as they're up 2-1 in the series, and that'll be the first game contested tonight, 6 o'clock. And then the second game, Yankees and the Royals, with the Yankees pulling out. That was amazing.
yeah.
Did you have any kind of a prop bet on Giancarlo Stanton stealing a
Oh,
base? Never
I
mind.
wasn't thinking like anybody with that prop bet. I actually was surprised when I turned it back on and I saw the whole ball hit out of the park. I'm like, wow, that was Stanton that hit that, huh?
I mean,
But
he's running the second base, if you could call it that. He looked like Butterbean Ash running down to second base, and a heads-up play on his part. So
yes,
he really, literally, what was the driving force there? The rest of the Yankees, though, this vaunted Yankee lineup, but with Soto and Judge, a
right.
combined 1 for 25. How alarming is that for you, Mike Jones, if you're a Yankee fan?
It is. It is alarming that we've put up 5 runs in 2 games with the old Bronx Bombers term isn't figuring into the situation. But here's my thought about this game tonight. Yeah, you got your ace on the mound. You don't want to face the lefty in Game 5 going back home. I think the pressure is actually more on Kansas City as a rarity in this spot, just because I think they felt like with Lugo they would have a chance last night. They had the Yankees kind of small rotation guy and Schmidt going, fill in.
And
So
they had their shots. They had many chances to
they
put
did
runs on the board.
chances, yeah. And I was on the Royals a little bit there. Got lucky with a +1.5, but I just I think the Yankees close them out tonight. That would be one of the bets I think. I just think that the bats might come alive. Walker struggled in Game 1. That's just a little gut feeling. I wouldn't, go on it. But if you're going to bet the game, I think you just got to look at the better team, better personnel, the right pitcher. That tonight the Yankees get it done, because I really don't think they. I would like the other side in a Game 5 in New York. As crazy as that sounds, if they get the lefty, I think the Yankees might be in trouble. So I feel the Yankees' focus has got to be, let's not go back to the pitcher who kind of mowed us a little bit. Let's try to go after the guy who we hit a little bit and try to take it out here in Kansas City.
All right. When I go to the racetrack, I'm a big advocate of horse body language. You can kind of see this is applicable in other sports. We saw the frustration of Aaron Rodgers prior to the trip to London with the towel over his head. That's the lasting image you have, and you figured this team is in disarray. There's a lot of acrimony and a lot of division inside the Jets organization. They end up firing their head coach, and I don't know how supportive you are of that angle of the interim head coach. I'm not sure that Ulbrich isn't a cheap version of what you were getting from Robert Saleh, maybe not even as effective. So, can you turn that whole thing around when you see the so-called body language of the New York Jets just seem to be a team in total disarray? And that was my big contention, that the Jets, before they fired Saleh, that the Jets were in a big jackpot in this game against the Buffalo Bills coming up on Monday night. Wasn't sure of the status of Josh Allen, but I think even if Josh Allen's head is spinning like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, even if he's spitting up pea soup, he's still going to be enough of an asset for the Bills to beat the Jets. How much incentive do you think they have here, and will they be inspired by the transition and having an interim head coach, because we've seen that number play out pretty favorably over
Mhm.
the last 14, 15 years.
We have. All right, let's take this from both sides. Okay. There's a rumor or whatever it is that Sal and Rogers don't get along. Rogers goes out and debunks that on the Pat McAfee show this week, saying I had nothing
Can
to
you
do.
believe that, though?
Okay, well, granted, you can't believe half of what the media says or what people say today, so I'm going to buy into your assumption that maybe he did. You
Well,
better answer.
I'm just thinking when Woody Johnson said that he called him. I've been reading a lot about this in the New York Post, which I get every day. And, supposedly Woody Johnson speaks frequently with Aaron Rodgers, or did. And he was talking with him even before the firing took place on Tuesday. I can't imagine that he had this conversation with Aaron Rodgers and said, "Hey, how's it going? Everything okay in your social life? How'd you enjoy London? Did you have any shepherd's pie while you were there?
Right.
And by the way, I'm going to be firing Robert Saleh. So that's it. We'll talk to you later." I
I'll,
mean, you would have to think that
I'll
Aaron Rodgers had an opinion on that or the chance to stop it.
I'm going to buy your point and say, okay, maybe Rogers did have something to do with it. We'll know right away. I'm going to go to the other side and say, okay, Aaron's telling the truth. I'm going to look at it and say, Salah really was in a 20 and 36, wouldn't survive a New York situation more often than not. They're 2-3. They lose a terrible game to Denver. So you want to put that all on Rogers, great. Your defense is fine. Here's where I think the change helps. Let's see who they're playing. You got a team that's beaten Arizona. You got a team that's beaten a bad Jacksonville team at that time, because I'm going to get to Jacksonville a little later. You have a team that really doesn't have great wins. You have a team that was tested by the Ravens and were destroyed, and a team that just blew a game, probably worse than anybody's. They were talking about this on Monday, how the 3 passes off the goal line, not making use of timeouts. Bills fans are questioning McDermott. So are the Bills coming into New York with just as much problem with their guy as the Jets might have with their guy? So here's the thing. We got 9 home underdogs this weekend. This was one of the games I am keying in. I'm going to go with your trend and say this does make a plus for the Jets, that the Jets do come out somehow and rally, that now Aaron Rodgers, if he's responsible for anything, is better answer in some way, shape, or form to his, helping the decision along, which, we could agree, disagree, whatever. I like the Jets in this spot. I really do. I think not only do they cover, I think they outright win the game. I'm just not thrilled to where Buffalo's playing. I thought they got a nice schedule, boosted 3-2. Now they're playing a little bit better part of their schedule, and they seem to be a little bit, struggling a little bit. They got down big in the Houston game. They were down 14. Lost last year to the Aaron Rodgers injury in New York. It's a rivalry division game. Home dogs in division games usually are better than 50%. So I'm gonna ride the Jets in this one.
Holy fireman Ed, going with the Jets. I'm more inclined to lay out of this game than I am to back the Jets, but
Yeah,
there are some favorable
yeah.
signs, as you pointed out there, and that usually is a little bit ignites a spark when
Mhm.
there's a coaching change. I'm not sure that Robert Saleh wouldn't have been a very popular coach with the players on the Jets roster, because he seemed to be one of those guys that, as they say, it's kind of a corny cliche, but always had their back. He was rarely criticizing players. If anything, he was more critical of Rodgers than you would have imagined he would
Right,
be, by kind of shrugging his shoulders at a couple of the indiscretions
right,
that other players wouldn't have been able to get away with, like traveling to Egypt on some camel while he was supposed to be at preseason practices.
right,
And then, it seemed like he had a massive indifference working its way through his system as he was having this big disconnect with Robert Saleh, including the now infamous shoving incident when
right.
Saleh tried to put his arm around him and say, "Hey, that away, Aaron, we finally threw a touchdown pass." And
Mhm.
it didn't seem like that was received with the kind of favoritism that you would imagine if the player actually liked the coach. All right, so you're going to make that one of your plays, Mike Jones? We want to get into your picks. We want to make some money for the people out
We're
there.
just going to give you out, throw it out there. I got 2 plays I'm really thinking about, and I'm going to take it to college football, which has not been my forte, but I see something this week that's really, really intriguing. And a lot of people go against it because when you come off that big emotional win, usually this doesn't work. But I got a weird feeling this week about Vanderbilt. And I'll tell you, they're getting 13.5 at Kentucky. Kentucky, as a South Carolina family member with 2 girls in my house that went to South Carolina, followed them religiously. It was the best game they played all year at Kentucky. I saw some flaws in Kentucky's game. They go on, they play a tough game against Georgia, which is not the same Georgia team. Did not cover against Auburn. Obviously struggled in the Alabama game and got a late run. So who knows if Georgia's who they are. Then they go to Mississippi and beat a Mississippi team that looked like they were a little flat. Mississippi wakes up, comes in and destroys South Carolina. So all that being said, really take a look at Vanderbilt. Virginia Tech's supposed to be a team that was started the season, was supposed to be ahead of the ACC. Virginia Tech pops them. And how I know that? I laid the 12-13 and thought I was and got buried outright. And then I see that Diego Pavia, the quarterback, is a kid that I used to watch out west when I was there at New Mexico State. So the story goes yesterday. I was flipping through the channels, always looking for information. And Jerry Kill was his coach there, is on the Vanderbilt staff and pulled him in. And his affection for this guy, they have a very tight relationship. Called him up and said, "You're coming to Vanderbilt." I kind of like these kind of stories where the guy's motivated, 5 same coaches, a lot of familiarity. How could this guy go and survive? But he can play. I think he's going to make an NFL roster. Kentucky doesn't have that kind of quarterback, so we'll give an edge to Vanderbilt in the quarterback. The intangibles, you just come off a big win. They go to Missouri and lose in overtime, right? Missouri's ranked in the top 10, 12 in the country. They're being very competitive in games. Their bad loss is the loss to Georgia State. Georgia State, yeah, probably shouldn't. They feel their oats at Virginia Tech. They go in and beat Alcorn. They're 2-0. Of course, they're going to have that kind of letdown when your team is not used to winning. But have played much better since. 13 has a lot of points. Kentucky doesn't run up scores. I'll take Vanderbilt plus the 13.5.
And no doubt emboldened by the outright victory over Alabama, which was the shocker
Right.
of shockers last week. Alabama favored by 22. Our good friend and professor will be with us tomorrow. Not an advocate of laying huge point spreads with favorites like Alabama. And yet he thought they could write their own ticket in that ball game, coming off the Thrill-In Manila win over Georgia the week before. And they go out there and lay a very large egg. And Vanderbilt shows itself to at least being capable of going toe-to-toe with teams of that caliber. So, we're going to give Mike Jones a couple of stars here for stepping out and giving you Vanderbilt plus 13.5 in this ball game over Kentucky. All right, what else are you looking at this week, Mike?
All right, let's go to the pros. We talked about the 9 home underdogs. I think 10's been the most in betting history, so we got 9 this week. So as you're playing around, one of the ones I really like was an early dog, and now it's not, was Tennessee. I like Tennessee getting one from the Colts. They are now a 2.5-point favorite. Last year, those lines that stayed under 2.5 either way, when they made that big move, kind of the result went the other way. Meaning, if the team that had the move against them, it was the plus 2.5 that won. We'd go back to the Colts in this game. But I'm going to lay off. But I like till I saw that 3.5-point move, and it's injuries. Taylor's might not be playing. The Downs and receivers got a problem. They're still dealing with the quarterback, so they're going back to Richardson. Who knows what the Colts are doing? But I like what Tennessee's doing, and that's why I kind of lean. But I liked it at +1. I'm not sure at 2.5. Here's the game. I'm going to go again to a neutral site game, and I'm going to go to overseas a little bit. The 9:30 game in the morning, so we get this good start. We get to your bookie's wallet real quick, and you got balance the rest of your day out.
Yeah, 6:30 in the morning if you're out west.
So the Bears are one of these teams that everybody was all over and liked. I think Nick Wright picked the Bears to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and I question everything. I'm not huge on Caleb Williams. My guy in this draft is Jaden Daniels with Washington. But here's where I look at this game. The Bears have 3 wins, 2 losses. Their 3 wins are against teams all with one win. Granted, if they beat this team, it's a 4th win with teams with 1 win. They haven't really been tested. I like Jacksonville coming off the momentum, and I like Jacksonville's familiarity of playing in England because they've done it for the last few years, and now they're doing it again next week. So they go over there. Last couple of years, they stayed an extra week. They played 2 games in a row over there. So they probably have a little bit of a fan base. Chicago will bring fans in, but I think it kind of be neutral. I think they're kind of Britain's team if you really think about it. And I think the win, everybody was after Doug Peterson. That win, a very good win, even though they were favored, and everybody thought, why are they favored? And that's why the guys in Vegas and people who set these numbers know what they're doing. They made them a 3-point favorite and made it a push, so they picked it exactly right. But in this particular game, it doesn't make sense that Jacksonville's only 2. Everybody's on the Bears. Bears are the 3-2 team. Why are they only 2? So I'm going to look at this game and say, this is going to be more of a test than what Caleb Williams has faced in his wins this year. He's going to be in unfamiliar territory. And I like Jacksonville in this game plus the 2.
And it's kind of like people are riding the crest of a wave, as Caleb Williams has shown steady improvement from the opening week. And, of course, last week, his best performance so far to date. But what we've seen where those kind of indicators sometimes, as you were saying about South Carolina, sometimes you got to pull a knife out of your back and come back and go the other way. And, so Jacksonville, a team that was I don't know how highly regarded they were, but they weren't expected to be as bad as they started the season. And they may have found a little bit of a formula last time, and we've seen a lot of these teams in these spots to somehow rebound. And
You
the
know,
other thing that's in play in the NFL this year, and we talk about it frequently with various NFL insiders. Just had another show with a brilliant NFL analyst, Jason Cole, who works for a site now called the 33rd Team, and you can catch his work. And he's theorized ever since the change in the preseason format that you have to look at September as the preseason in the National Football League. And you do see a lot of reversals of form from things, and we're seeing it this year again. Teams that were really good the first couple of weeks, like New Orleans, looked like a juggernaut. All of a sudden, they're questioning whether or not Dennis Allen can actually coach, and they've lost 3 games in a row and look very pedestrian by comparison to what we saw when they were annihilating the Cowboys in week number 2. All right, those are official plays, and then you have a lean on the Jets
I
in this
do.
game against the Buffalo Bills.
And then we're gonna take our chances with the Yankees also today if we stay with baseball. I think the first game is more leaning an under bet. I don't like the 6.5. It's the first time other than school ball they're going that low on the total, so I don't lean a total. But I think the Yankees really close them out tonight, and I think they have to. I think the Yankees will feel it. I think Kansas City's got a little more pressure on them, and I'm looking for a Yankee win also.
Amazing, Aaron Judge and his failures in the postseason too. It's almost shocking to see him desperate for anything to fall in. Sometimes you'll get a looping base hit and it'll trigger and ignite the guy to get on a bit of a run, but it just hasn't happened. They put a lid on Aaron Judge all throughout the postseason, and strange thing because I'm really a big fan of Aaron Judge. He comports himself so well. Seems like a tremendous ambassador for the game. Whether you're a Yankee lover or hater, it's impossible to root against Aaron Judge. He's done monumental things in terms of home runs and stats, and had a 322 batting average with the kind of power he displayed this year. And yet he got caught in the throes of a woeful slump towards the end of the season. And unfortunately for Yankee fans, that's continued throughout. All right, if people want to find out more about your selections and the way you handicap and the way you think and your whole team, how can they do that, Mike Jones?
We're on Picks for Profits, PIX with the number 4profits.com, and we come out and sign up. We give you a pick a day, and we try to give you less picks and make you more money. We're looking for that higher better that wants to, to make money off of some of the picks. Spend more time with your family. You're not watching a TV all day. We're going to give you that one game.
Or your phone.
Now that you guys get mad at you, you get hungry for 3 hours, then you can move on with the day. So that's kind of our little platform. And we give on our best bet, we give you your money back if we lose, which we hear is not hasn't done anywhere. And so if you get on our best bet play, when we lose it, we're going to refund you. So
all right, sounds good. And what's again, where do people tap in?
Picksforprofits.com.
All right, best of luck, Michael. We'll talk to you later on today on one of our other platforms, and looking very much forward to that in the afternoon. And thanks, as always, for joining us on these Thursday sessions of Bury Your Bookie.
Great to be with you, and thank you.
All right, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I have an degenerate ethical question here. Are you morally obligated if somebody gives you a tip horse at the track? Are you morally obligated to share that with at least your closest friends, and especially here, our broad-based audience on Bury Your Bookie here on No Filter? I say yes to that. Now, I don't know that we can issue and offer this with any type of guarantee. The source is, I believe, a reliable one, but it's also a guy that sends in substantial amounts of money. And if he stays true to form, not just in horse racing, this is a guy that's betting hundreds of thousands on football games of significance, and his average bet is somewhere in the 20 dime range. That would be a low number for him. So if he sends in his usual 20 dimes on this horse, then it's going to go off one tonight. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be betting this somewhere obscure offshore book, or people that are lining up in a boiler room in the jungles of Costa Rica, and it won't reflect in the parimutuel pools. But nonetheless, he's running a horse, a good friend of ours. His name is Sheldon, and he owns a horse called Majestic Eagle that he says will air in the 6th race today at Delaware Park. It's going to be the 10-ball race 6 Delaware Park Majestic Eagle. Watch for that. I felt obligated to share that with our audience here. If you're following us with the football picks and all the other selections, there's a horse that I was given today, guaranteed under the auspices of cannot lose, which is usually, it's usually a recipe for disaster. But there it is. There you have it. It takes a certain amount of balls to step out on something like this, but that was the information that we had. Majestic Eagle, race 6, number 10 at Delaware Park later on today. All right, we wish you guys the best of luck. Enjoy watching the two baseball games. Is Bob Costas losing it, by the way? Costas was actually class below me in terms of graduating from Syracuse University. He was already a dynamite announcer when he was doing college games on WAER in Syracuse, New York. He thought the guy was brilliant and had a brilliant career. Everything he's done in his career, I think, he wasn't the favorite of a lot of people. People thought he was a little sanctimonious, whatever, a little bit too highbrow intellectual. But in all the years I've watched him, he never flubbed a word, and rarely. I mean, I don't know that you can find two calls that he's blown in his career, much less in like one ball game. But is he morphing into John Sterling in his old age? Bob Costas, much younger than Sterling. Costas would have to be about 72 years old. Sterling, of course, is still trying to announce games at 86 or whatever he is. And, the typical Sterling call was, it is high, it is far, it is caught by the second baseman. That's right, John. It was a pop-up on the infield. They invoked the infield flat rule. I don't know why you thought it was going to be a home run, but it's very much in the ballpark. Susan Wallman, of course, who sounds a little bit like Marge Simpson when she does this thing, but she spent most of her color analysis time trying to correct John Sterling on calls that he had clearly blown because he couldn't see anymore. Costas blew a couple of them yesterday. He had a base hit going up the middle that was caught. He had a ball that looked like it was going to be insignificant, according to him. It was very much in play, well inside the left field foul line. It went for a double that produced and triggered the rally for the Kansas City Royals. I believe that was in the 6th inning. He had no idea this ball was going to be fair. What the hell happened, Bob? Still great respect. I mean, pay nothing but homage to your brilliant career. But it does seem like maybe the vision is going a little bit. And we're not sure if you can even see the Big E on the eye chart anymore, much less be in a position to call games. Maybe they had him in a bad location. I can't imagine in Kansas City. But that was kind of startling last night in the baseball game. 72,000 in the 50-50 pool, people. Would you take a shot? We'll take a shot tomorrow with some college football with the professor. And thanks to Mike Jones for joining us on the show. Good luck with all your wagers. I hope that horse wins now that we gave him out. No guarantees on that. No money back. Tread lightly and, do it at your own risk, as they say. For the people at No Filter and all of our other platforms, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Jeff Deforrest, and we hope we've helped you a little bit in your attempts to bury your bookie.